was expecting her to say. Other things just kind of blew my mind. I mean, there's some details that came out that she revealed that I wasn't expecting and I didn't know about. And I'm going to go through all of the new developments and everything that stood out to me that she said and what I think it means coming up in this episode. Also, you're going to hear from Maureen O'Connell. She's my friend. She's a retired FBI agent. She's been on the show a bunch. I know you guys love her. I love Maureen too. She's got some really new, interesting theories when it comes to how Nancy Guthrie was taken out of the house, and also the whole possibility of a Mexico connection. Could the suspects have gone back to Mexico, or the suspect? And I've never really been able to shake the possibility of a Mexico connection. I know early on, remember I went to Mexico looking around, and I know early on the sheriff's office said, there's no reason to believe that Nancy is in Mexico or that this involves anyone in Mexico. But at the same time, we've never been told why not to believe that. And I don't know. I'm not saying there's a Mexican connection. I just haven't been able to shake it. And there's some new information on that front that I am going to talk to Maureen about coming up a little later in the episode. But first, I do want to go through the key developments when it comes to Savannah Guthrie and the interview that she did with Hoda that came out on the Today Show. First of all, I mean, it's gut-wrenching. It is gut-wrenching. And it is one of the reasons that I have felt so invested in this story, is because I've thought about her and her family and what they have been going through. And when you saw her in this interview, you realized just the agony. And even though we are now on day 54 for them, the pain is still so raw, and the not knowing is still excruciating. And that came through very clearly in Savannah's interview. So the first part I want to play for you, and then I'll talk about it, is how, and I had wondered about this, because I think one of the reasons we're also invested in this story is because we're all thinking about our own moms. And I'm like so close to my mom, and I'm an only child, and like I'm very, very close to my mom. And I've played out in my mind like how I would handle realizing if my mom was gone and abducted. And so this is the first thing that Savannah talked about, is how she found out and what went through.
And that didn't make any sense. We thought maybe they came and there was a stretcher and they took her out the back. But her phone was there and her purse was there and all her things. Yeah. And it just didn't make any sense. So,
It really stood out to me that she talked about the back doors being propped open, and there was a plural there, back doors being propped open. Now, I don't know if that was just the way she was kind of saying it, and maybe it's a back door, but I picked up on that. More than one door being propped open, she said. Did the suspect... I mean, remember, we saw the suspect or suspects on the front doorbell camera in the front of the house, but did they enter through the back? Did they take Nancy out through the back? Did they perhaps just enter through the back and then open up the front door and open up that security gate and take Nancy out the front, which would explain why we saw the blood in the front? That seems like a real possibility. We still don't know, but the fact that Savannah is acknowledging that the back doors were propped open is very interesting, and in my mind creates several different scenarios in the way this may have all gone down. Also, the fact, obviously, that her phone and purse were there. These are things that I had heard early on, that it didn't appear to be a burglary. And then the fact that she was barefoot and that she was in her pajamas. Again, it just creates this mental picture of how...
For days after Nancy Guthrie disappeared, investigators searched for answers without any clear direction. Officers interviewed neighbors, reviewed surveillance footage, and followed dozens of tips. But the case remained filled with uncertainty until a single document appeared that changed everything: the ransom note. According to investigators, the note was discovered shortly after Nancy was reported missing. It contained a message demanding money and instructions that appeared carefully written. At first glance, the document seemed to confirm what many people feared: that Nancy had been taken and that the person responsible wanted something in return. The discovery immediately shifted the focus of the investigation. Then journalist Brian Entin stepped forward with new information that made investigators look at the note in a completely different way. During a televised report, Brian Entin explained that the ransom note was not just a demand for money. He said it held clues about the person who wrote it, clues hidden in the language, structure, and timing of the message. His analysis quickly caught the attention of law enforcement and the public. According to Brian Entin, the wording in the note suggested familiarity with Nancy's routine and personal life. Certain phrases appeared unusually specific, as if the writer understood details that would not normally be known to a stranger. That observation raised serious questions. Investigators began reviewing the note more carefully, examining every word and every line. They compared the handwriting, studied the tone of the message, and analyzed how the instructions were delivered. For the first time since the case began, the ransom note became the center of the investigation. Brian Entin described it as the most important piece of evidence in the case, a document that could reveal not only what the suspect wanted, but who the suspect might be. And as experts continued studying the note, one chilling possibility started to emerge. The message may have revealed more about the writer than the writer intended. And to stay updated on every major development in this case, like and subscribe to Dark Case Files True Crime, where every detail matters. After Brian Entin revealed that the ransom note contained hidden clues, investigators returned to the document with a sharper focus. They were no longer just reading the message. They were studying it carefully, looking for patterns that could explain who wrote it and why. That closer inspection uncovered something unexpected. According to Brian Entin, one detail in the note immediately stood out to experts: the timing of when the message was delivered. The note appeared very soon after Nancy Guthrie was reported missing, which raised an important question for investigators. How could the writer act so quickly? Brian Entin explained during his report that in many cases, ransom notes are prepared in advance. That means the person responsible may have planned the incident ahead of time, rather than acting suddenly. The speed at which the note appeared suggested preparation, and preparation suggested intent. That realization made the note even more suspicious. Investigators also noticed that the instructions inside the message were unusually specific. The writer described exact steps to follow, and used language that sounded calm and controlled. According to Brian Entin, this kind of detail often indicates that the writer had time to think carefully about what to say. This was not a rushed message. It looked deliberate. For detectives, this discovery changed the direction of the investigation. Instead of focusing only on the disappearance, they began analyzing the note as evidence of planning. They examined how the message was written, how it was delivered, and what it revealed about the person behind it. Brian Entin told viewers that the note was beginning to tell its own story. Every word, every instruction, and every detail pointed to someone who had thought about the situation before it happened. That conclusion made investigators realize they were likely dealing with a carefully prepared plan, rather than a spontaneous act. The tension surrounding the case grew stronger, because if the note had been prepared ahead of time, it meant the person responsible had made decisions long before Nancy disappeared, and that possibility led investigators to ask a chilling new question: who had the knowledge and the time to plan something like this? As investigators continued studying the ransom note, Brian Entin focused on another critical aspect of the message: the exact words used by the writer. According to him, language can reveal far more than people realize. The tone, phrasing, and structure of a message often reflect the mindset of the person who created it. That insight led experts to examine the note line by line. Brian Entin explained during his report that the wording in the message sounded unusually confident. Instead of appearing nervous or hurried, the writer used calm and direct instructions. The message did not contain obvious mistakes or confusion. Instead, it showed control and certainty. That detail immediately caught investigators' attention. In many cases, people writing under pressure make errors. They rush their words, repeat phrases, or leave incomplete thoughts. But according to Brian Entin, the ransom note in this case showed signs of planning and careful thinking. It looked intentional. Investigators also noticed that the message contained references to routines and details that suggested familiarity with Nancy Guthrie's daily life. The writer seemed to know when she would be alone and how her household operated. That level of awareness raised concerns that the person responsible may have observed her activities before the incident. For detectives, this discovery changed the tone of the investigation once again. The note was no longer just evidence of a demand. It was evidence of knowledge, and knowledge meant the writer may have had access to information about Nancy's habits, schedule, or environment. Brian Entin described this realization as chilling, because the message suggested that the person behind the note was not acting randomly. Instead, the writer appeared to understand the situation in detail, and had taken time to prepare the message carefully. That conclusion led investigators to focus on a new possibility. The writer may have been someone who had watched Nancy's routine closely, or someone who already knew it. That idea pushed the investigation into its next phase, as detectives began examining connections, relationships, and past interactions that could explain how the writer gained such detailed knowledge. As investigators continued analyzing the ransom note, Brian Entin revealed a discovery that quickly became one of the most important moments in the entire investigation. According to him, the breakthrough did not come from advanced technology or dramatic evidence. It came from a single mistake hidden within the message itself. A mistake the writer likely never intended to make. During his report, Brian Entin explained that forensic specialists had carefully reviewed the wording, formatting, and structure of the note. Their goal was to identify anything unusual, any detail that could provide direction. At first, the message appeared controlled and deliberate. But after repeated examination, experts noticed something that stood out immediately: a specific phrase. The phrase used in the note matched language commonly used in a certain environment connected to Nancy Guthrie's daily life. It was not a general expression. It was a term that people in that particular setting used regularly. To investigators, this detail was impossible to ignore. Brian Entin described the discovery as a turning point. Language patterns can reveal background, habits, and familiarity. When the same wording appears in both a ransom note and everyday communication from a specific group or location, investigators begin to see connections. That was exactly what happened in this case. Detectives started comparing the phrase to emails, messages, and conversations from individuals who had contact with Nancy. They were not accusing anyone. Instead, they were looking for consistency, a pattern that could explain why the same wording appeared in different places. The results were striking. Investigators realized that the phrase significantly narrowed the field of possibilities. It suggested that the writer belonged to a smaller group of people who shared similar language and experiences. For Brian Entin, this was the moment the ransom note stopped being just a message and became a powerful piece of evidence. Because the mistake revealed something the writer could not hide: a connection to Nancy's world. That realization pushed investigators into the next phase of the case, identifying exactly who used that phrase and why it appeared in the ransom note. And to stay informed on every major development in this investigation, like and subscribe to Dark Case File True Crime, where every clue counts.
Her back was very bad, you know.
Could have happened, like, what could have happened? What went down? Did you...
I think my brother... I mean, my siblings are so amazing. My brother, you know, he's like, how dumb could I be?
So interesting to see that the family very early on thought this was a kidnapping, and it makes sense. I mean, again, you think about if you were in this situation and you knew that your mom could barely walk and that she wouldn't just disappear and the back doors are open and her phone and everything is left behind, it makes sense why she would think that. Savannah also talked about whether or not her fame and wealth could have something to do with this. And this is something that we have talked about since the beginning, and I've had people on the show to talk about, because if you look historically and statistically at kidnappings and abductions, they are not typically, they are almost never random. And especially when it comes to elderly people. And it has always seemed like if someone was going to kidnap Nancy or abduct Nancy and ask for a ransom, it would probably have something to do with the fact that they knew that Savannah Guthrie was her daughter. And it seems that Savannah also realizes that, and she
I mean, we still don't know. Honestly, we don't know anything.
No.
We don't know anything. So I don't know that it's because that would make sense, but we don't know. But yeah, that's probably, which is too much to bear. To think that I brought this to her bedside, that it's because of me.
So again, just excruciating to think about the guilt that Savannah feels, and obviously, I mean, that I think anyone would feel that way. You know, it's just terrible. I mean, she shouldn't feel that way, but you know, I don't even know what to say about it. It's terrible hearing her cry during that part. To me, that was really the most emotional part of the interview, and just so sad. She also talks about the ransom letters, and this is something that we haven't talked about in a while. I think a lot of us pushed these aside. Remember TMZ, and there were so many different letters, and we didn't know which ones to take seriously, and there was never really a clear way to pay a ransom. And a lot of the experts who I was talking to were saying, look, like they didn't even think any of the letters were real. But what's interesting is Savannah is saying that she thinks that 2 of the letters may have in fact been legit. Because you remember, there were 2 letters that went to the local TV station that also went to TMZ. There was information in those letters that made it seem like they could be real, specifics about things inside the house, some specifics about things outside the house. And even all this time later, it sounds like Savannah believes that those letters could have been legitimate. Listen.
To a family in pain. But I believe the 2 notes that we received, that we responded to, I tend to believe those are real.
Really?
So I still have a lot of questions about the ransom letters. I think in a future episode, I'm going to dive back into the ransom letters and everything we know, because again, I think a lot of us have moved on from those. And the fact that Savannah is saying she thinks 2 of them are legit probably means that law enforcement is also thinking that and telling her that. So I'm going to go back, I'm going to talk to some of my sources again, and I'll do an episode in the coming days about the ransom letters. Remember, she offered $1 million reward. So why that never panned out? Again, there's this theory, which I've talked about, that this was an abduction for ransom initially, that something happened to Nancy where she died, and that whoever did this is thinking, I don't want to be charged with murder, because you could still be charged with felony murder, and I don't even want the ransom anymore. We're just going to pretend like this never happened. I think that's a possibility. But yeah, I'm going to dive back into the ransom letters, because that was one of the parts of the interview that surprised me, that she still believes that 2 of the ransom letters are legit. That is not something that I was expecting her to say, but it's interesting. And this last part I want to play is about, well, actually there's 2 more parts I want to play, but this next part I want to play is about what her family's going through. I mean, there have been, and I saw it a ton when I was there, I mean, there's been a lot of finger pointing at members of the Guthrie family and people thinking that they were involved, even though the sheriff outright said that they are not suspects. And I've reported about polygraphs being taken, but to hear her explain how this has felt for her, that aspect of this, I felt was, again, really heartbreaking. Listen to this. One final part of the interview I want to play for you before I get into my discussion with Maureen is about, they asked Savannah what she thinks about the investigation, which this was obviously interesting to me, considering all of the criticism of the sheriff, the fact that it's now day 54, there's still no resolution. I wanted to hear what Savannah thought. And I'll tell you what I think about it, but listen to what she said.
And someone can do the right thing.
So I thought it was interesting that she obviously recognized the tireless work of law enforcement, and it has been tireless. And they still have this task force that's working pretty much around the clock. But you also heard her say, I mean, the agony of it now being almost 2 months, and she's clearly, I sensed there's a frustration there, which how could there not be? How could there not be if you've been waiting this long for some kind of resolution? I think we're all frustrated, let alone if you're Savannah Guthrie or someone in her family. So my heart again goes out to her and the family. You know, I don't know. I think that's one of the reasons that we're all so invested in this. And I just hope for them that there's some kind of resolution soon. Will any of this make a difference, her talking? Could this actually cause someone to come forward who feels, you know, guilty or sees Savannah's agony and decides they want to do the right thing? I hope so. I'm not sure that's really going to happen, though, and that's one of the things that I talked about with Maureen O'Connell, again, my friend and retired FBI agent. Maureen, it's nice to see you. Thank you for joining me again.
Good to see you as always.
Are you having a good day?
Having a long day already, even though it's early, but
Are
it's
you?
it's
Yeah.
it's all good. Yep.
Okay, good.
Started super early, but getting it done.
Well, thank you for making the time for me. I was just commenting your necklace. I was wondering if it was a like an FBI. It looked like almost a sheriff's star.
It's actually the Chicago Police badge. They have a star, and this was my sister's, and she worked Chicago Police for her whole career. And then when she passed away, her kids were kind enough to give it to me, and I just absolutely cherish it.
Well, it looks really nice. It's
Just like I loved my sister Sue. She was a lunatic, but in the best possible way.
awesome. So I wanted to ask you a couple about some of these new developments with Nancy Guthrie. First of all, hey guys, I was in Arizona for almost a month and a half, and my eating habits, they were not great. There was so much good Mexican food, and I found myself eating late at night when I would get done with work. So now that I'm back home for a bit, I am getting back into my Factor routine. They released the one clip of Savannah. This is her first interview, and she it's just so sad the part where she's talking about how she's been waking up in the middle of the night thinking about what her mom woke up to. What was your takeaway?
That was really hard to watch, even though it was only a few minutes long. Um, and it's a multiple of 5,000, what I've been saying since the beginning, which is I wake up some nights wondering, where is Nancy? And I've said since the very beginning, as soon the moment I saw those images of that porch pirate, I just thought, oh my God, what she must have awakened to. It's unbelievable. And now that we find out that her family says that she did, in fact, leave her doors unlocked, or at least the back doors, I suspected maybe something with, owning a dog all those years. And I said it to you before on the show that she may have left it open to let the dog out or whatever. But I really, you know, it goes, at the end of this, let's go over some more tips for people that are living alone and want to remain safe, because I've got a whole new list. I mean, I only gave a couple of things last time you asked me.
Yeah, remind me at the end because I do want to ask you that because a lot of people commented when we did that video that it was really, really helpful. Even some of the stuff that it's like, oh, everybody must know that, you just forget. So I'm gonna ask you that at the end. But yeah, when you've worked with like I'm just thinking about Savannah right now. I mean, obviously there's a plan for her to get back to work, but when you've worked with victims, I mean, with the not knowing, I mean, it'd be hard enough to lose your mom and know what happened, but the not knowing, like, how do you get through that?
I worked with a lot of victims in for cases throughout my career, but the ones that I really worked closely with were the family members of the victims of the Colonial Parkway murders. And even though it was a TV show we were there for weeks and weeks. We spent a great deal of time with the victims' families and just talking about what these crimes did to their parents, how it just destroys whole families. And I don't mean destroys like everyone stops loving each other. I mean, your mother is completely broken, your dad when they lose a child, your father the same way. The marriage is never the same because they can't seem to connect. Because this type of thing is so heavy. It's like having an elephant sit on your back 24/7. It's so heavy, and you can feel it when you interact with these people. It's really it's oftentimes the hardest part of the job is just seeing that and then feeling what it does to you too when you're involved. But for Savannah, I mean, it doesn't take a psychic to see what she's feeling. It's everywhere. I mean, you could feel it through the screen. I wish there was something I could do to help her. So many of us do, and I know you do too, Brian. Oh, and one of them would be to find the sons of bitches that did this to her mother and just, oh,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think about her job too. She has to go through all this in such a public way and then going back to work. what that's going to be like for her, even just because it is the Today Show and it's kind of a lighthearted show. I mean, they do cooking segments. It's not really meant. It's not a depressing show. You know what I mean? It's a morning show. So I just wonder what that's going to be like for her to have to kind of try to,
Well,
I guess,
Brian,
put this to the side.
there's a lot of victims that go through this that have to go back working at McDonald's.